Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take your source material and really unearth the crucial insights you need to be truly well informed. Today, we're plunging into the exciting and, yeah, sometimes daunting world of starting a small business. Specifically, we're dissecting the foundations, your business plan, and crucially, your funding blueprint. We've got this core question driving our deep dive today, and it's inspired directly by some of the material you shared with us. So imagine your friend, let's call him Mohammed, has this fantastic business idea. Maybe it's a unique, sustainable coffee shop, something like that. His friends are all cheering him on. The concept sounds brilliant. But then comes that big question. Does he have to sit down and write a formal, maybe lengthy business plan? Or can he just, grab a napkin, scribble up the vision, like some of those famous success stories you hear about? And okay, if he does need a plan, how on earth does he even begin to get it funded? That's a huge hurdle. So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge. We want to help you understand the true purpose, the different types, and the really crucial elements of a business plan. Plus, we'll navigate the diverse landscape of startup financing, and maybe most importantly, how to effectively pitch to investors. Turn that vision into a tangible reality.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is how often entrepreneurs grapple with this exact thing, this tension between, let's say, formality and agility. So many people hear business plan and immediately think stifling bureaucracy, right? But we're going to try and cut through that noise today. We'll provide not just the what of these processes, but the profound why it matters, and hopefully help you understand what's truly essential for transforming that vision into a reality.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Mohammed's got the great idea, friends are excited, but then someone says business plan, and it feels like this huge, scary mountain. What is this mountain, really? And why do we even need to climb it? What's its core purpose?
Well, at its heart, a business plan is essentially your business's story, just written down. It clearly spells out, first, what problem you're solving for people, and second, crucially, how you, the entrepreneur, are actually going to do it, step by step. Think of it as your game plan. It gives concrete shape to those dreams, those ideas, and it helps you assess if a good idea is also, a good investment opportunity. It does that by providing evidence that's key evidence that your business can sell enough products or services to make an attractive profit. It's about creating a blueprint that shows viability, not just passion.
Okay, that makes perfect sense on paper, but then we bump into the Mohammed dilemma. He knows, or maybe he's heard of, successful businesses that supposedly didn't have these super formal plans. The famous napkin idea stories, right? So for Mohammed, or anyone in his shoes, should he write a business plan or not? This is where it gets, I think, genuinely interesting.
It's true. There isn't one single rigid formula for preparing a business plan. Opportunities are just so diverse in size and gross potential that no single plan format is going to work in every single situation. However, what the research suggests is that for most entrepreneurs, the issue isn't really whether to plan. It's more about when and how to engage in effective planning, given their specific circumstances. For example, many small business owners actually delay preparing a plan until they're absolutely required to, maybe by a lender, for instance. But look, regardless of the timing, there seem to be three key elements that every business plan should probably include at a minimum. First, a logical statement of a problem and its solution. Seems obvious, but it needs to be clear. Second, a significant amount of hard evidence to back up your claims. Data, market research, maybe proof of concept. And third, and this one's really critical, candor. Honesty about the risk, the gaps in your knowledge, and the assumptions you're making that might, ultimately be proved wrong.
Candor about risks. That feels, almost counterintuitive when you're trying to sell an idea, make it sound perfect. Why is that specific element so important? Doesn't it just highlight your weaknesses?
It's actually about trust. See, investors aren't looking for a perfect fairy tale. They know business is risky. What they're looking for is someone who understands reality, who anticipates challenges, and who has a clear strategy for when things don't go perfectly to plan. That kind of self-awareness, that candor, it's the ultimate credibility booster. It makes you look like a seasoned professional, not just a starry-eyed dreamer. It shows you've really thought things through. And while we're talking about what goes into a plan, it might be useful to quickly differentiate between a business plan and a business model. They're related, but not quite the same thing. Think of it like this. Your business model is kind of the engine. It's how your business actually generates profits and cash flows, the core mechanics. Your business plan is more like the owner's manual and the detailed roadmap. It covers the engine, sure, but also the whole vehicle. It includes the safety features, the risks of a flat tire, maybe your roadside assistance strategy, if you will. Entrepreneurs have to continually anticipate what could go wrong with that underlying business model, and the plan is how you articulate that whole bigger picture, risks and all.
Okay, so good news. No 50-page thesis required automatically. That's a relief for anyone intimidated by a blank page. You mentioned there are choices in how to plan, especially since time and money are always tight for startups. What are the practical options here?
Absolutely. You really have two basic choices when it comes to structure. The first is the short plan. Think of it as an abbreviated form. It just addresses the most important issues for the firm's success. So that usually includes the problem you're solving, your business strategy or value proposition, your business model, how you'll measure success, key milestones, and the tasks of your management team. A short plan like this is particularly useful for attracting initial interest from investors. It lets them quickly gauge if your idea sparks their curiosity without getting bogged down in, excessive detail right away. Then, the second choice is the comprehensive plan. Now, when entrepreneurs and investors talk about the business plan, this is usually what they mean. It's a complete in-depth analysis of all the critical factors that are likely to determine success or failure. And importantly, it includes all your underlying assumptions. This comprehensive approach is especially beneficial when you're facing significant change, maybe in the business itself or in the external environment. Think like changing demographics or new legislation hitting your industry. Or it's useful when you need to explain a genuinely complex business situation to potential investors.
Right, so it sounds like a lot of paper, a lot of strategizing, but how does this plan actually translate into real-world impact for your business? I mean, what does it do once it's written?
It really plays a dual role. It functions as both a communication tool and an assessment and evaluation tool. For communication, it serves both insiders and outsiders. For your company insiders, that's you, your management team, your employees, the business plan provides a clear framework. It helps focus everyone on the most important issues and activities, and it communicates your vision effectively. Gets everyone on the same page, basically. And then for outsiders like potential customers, suppliers, lenders, investors, it provides that crucial evidence we talked about, proof that your startup will likely be around in the future.
I mean, think about it personally. Wouldn't you require something similar before investing your own savings, maybe even your family's savings, into a completely new venture?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd want some reassurance. Exactly. It's your proof that you've done the homework. And then, as an assessment and evaluation tool, the plan helps you strike the right balance between, well, planning forever and actually getting operational. Now, the source material does acknowledge there are scenarios where extensive planning might not be the best use of time. Maybe if the environment is just too turbulent, too much uncertainty, or if critical timing means you absolutely need to become operational extremely quickly.
Right, like speed to market is everything.
Precisely. Or even if there's a severe capital shortage, you might need to act fast. Adaptability can sometimes trump a rigid plan in those specific situations. However, and this is a crucial caveat often, resistance to writing a plan actually stems from a lack of discipline, not necessarily a valid reason tied to the business environment itself. This raises an important question, If planning is generally the rule, not the exception, what does it mean to plan with intention? It means you really have to justify your beliefs and assumptions with evidence, which ultimately strengthens your venture. And remember, bankers and other lenders, they typically demand a written plan. They use it to assess your understanding and your commitment before they even consider giving you a loan.
Okay, so you've got this brilliant blueprint. Maybe Mohammed has his short plan ready for his coffee shop, detailing his unique roasting process, his community events, looks great. But a brilliant blueprint on its own won't buy him a single espresso machine, right? The next big hurdle for Mohammed and pretty much anyone else is finding the fuel, the money, to actually build this vision. Where does that money come from?
Exactly. Finding adequate financing is, well, it's critical. The materials we looked at highlight three main types of financing you'll likely need to consider. First, there's startup financing. That's the money needed just to open your doors. Think buildings, equipment, initial inventory, licenses, those one-time upfront costs. Second, short-term financing. This is for your current day-to-day operating activities, usually needed for less than a year, often just 1 or 2 months to cover things like payroll or supplies. And third, long-term financing. This covers those major resources that will last many years: land, buildings, significant expensive equipment. This usually requires larger sums of money repaid over a much longer period.
So 3 types. Where do you even start looking for these different kinds of funds? Is it all just knocking on bank doors, or are there other avenues that new businesses can explore these days?
Oh, it's definitely not just banks anymore. Most new businesses actually start on relatively little funds, surprisingly. And the money usually comes from a mixture of owner-supplied funds and borrowed funds. Each route has its own benefits and drawbacks. On the owner-supplied side, personal savings are very common, maybe the most common, especially for single-owner businesses. And then there are friends and family. A traditional source for sure, but it's absolutely vital to ensure the terms are crystal clear. Is it a gift or is it a loan? When is repayment expected? Crucially, what happens if the business unfortunately doesn't succeed? You really want to protect those personal relationships.
Yeah, that can get messy fast.
It really can. Then for borrowed funds, you have the traditional banks and other financial institutions. Now, they might offer less favorable terms, perhaps, than friends and family, but they provide an established infrastructure and potentially much larger loan values if you qualify. Then there's crowdfunding. This has become increasingly popular, as you know. You invite the public essentially to donate or invest, often in exchange for perks or maybe early access to products. It's a fantastic way to generate publicity and build a community around your brand, but you absolutely must commit to meeting your supporters' expectations. You owe them. For certain types of businesses, especially high-tech firms, angel investors are common. These are typically successful business people, often entrepreneurs themselves, who inject cash in return for stake, for equity in the company. In Saudi Arabia, for example, you have groups like Okul and the angel investor network SERB playing this role. And closely related is venture capital, VC. This is money provided specifically for new products and businesses that show potential for really high profits. The thriving Saudi venture capital market, with entities like Saudi Venture Capital, SVC, stimulating financing. I think the source mentioned SAR 2.8 billion in investments, really shows how vital this source is becoming.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. And finally, don't forget supplier credit. Sometimes companies that sell you equipment or materials will offer you credit terms. But as a new owner, you have to carefully consider the true cost of that credit, the interest rates, and obviously the due dates. It's not free money. And beyond these main sources, the materials also mention resources like Monshot, which offers financing solutions like venture investment and finance guarantees, and platforms like the Tamwheel Funding Gate, which apparently facilitated billions in loans by early 2022. Plus, many business incubations also provide vital funding opportunities. Lots of avenues to explore.
Okay, so you've done the hard work, you've got your plan, you've mapped out your funding strategy, you know who you might approach. But how do you actually ask for that money? It surely can't be just handing over your, say, comprehensive plan, right? You can't just drop a 50-page document on an investor's desk and walk away hoping for the best.
Absolutely not. That's where the pitch comes in. It's usually an oral presentation, sometimes supported by slides, or maybe even a video presentation of your business idea. And its purpose, this is key, is not usually to close the deal right there on the spot. It's really to spark the investor's interest enough to get you to the next stage, which is usually due diligence, where they dig deeper. Think of your pitch like a movie trailer, not the whole film itself.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, its sole purpose is to make investors want to see the full feature. If you try to cram the entire plot into the trailer, you just overwhelm them, and they'll likely, move on to the next one. Typically, you might get around 15 to 20 minutes for your actual presentation, followed by roughly the same amount of time for questions and answers.
You mentioned earlier that entrepreneurs must think like an investor. What does that actually mean in practice? It sounds simple, but I imagine it's incredibly difficult when it's your baby, your passion project that you're talking about.
It means shifting your perspective really almost entirely. Entrepreneurs, naturally, can often speak very eloquently, very passionately about their product, their customer, their market. But they often lack the, let's say, intuition to present the opportunity primarily as a good investment. Investors want straightforward topics, usually presented in a pretty specific order. They need to see the path to return on their capital. Is this a good financial bet? So, for example, if Mohammed were pitching his coffee shop, he wouldn't just talk about how perfect his espresso is or the cozy atmosphere. He'd need to emphasize the projected profit margins, the scalability of the business, and the potential timeline for a return on investment. And, what we're seeing more of now, too, especially with production costs coming down, many startups are using short videos for their initial pitches. They're easily shareable, very engaging, and beyond just static slides, you're seeing innovations like interactive 3D models or even immersive virtual reality demonstrations becoming more common ways to present information compellingly to investors.
So it's almost like the ultimate job interview, isn't it? Where your main goal isn't necessarily to get hired on the spot, but to be so compelling that you absolutely get invited back for that crucial second round. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly right. It's all about Opening the door, sparking that curiosity, not necessarily walking all the way through it in that first meeting.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive this has been, seriously. We've journeyed from really understanding the essence of a business plan, defining its purpose, dissecting its essential elements, exploring its different forms, short versus comprehensive, all the way through navigating that complex landscape of startup financing options from, your own savings right up to venture capital, and finally touching on mastering the art of the investor pitch itself.
That's right. And I think the key takeaway is, while this whole process of launching a business and then trying to secure funding can seem, well, really daunting, a thoughtful approach, having a clear understanding of the tools available to you, like the different types of plans and funding, and, above all, crystal clear communication, those are absolutely vital for transforming a good idea into a truly successful venture. As we always say, knowledge is most valuable when it's understood and actually applied, and hopefully this deep dive has laid out a pretty powerful map for you.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Given that adaptability that seems so crucial for many startups, and considering the varying benefits of extensive planning versus, say, quick action, when might that perfect plan, if there is such a thing, actually hinder your entrepreneurial journey? And conversely, when is having that solid plan absolutely non-negotiable? What stands out to you as the most crucial element in finding that delicate balance between careful planning and just taking the plunge? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.